Well, I am Pauline Paul, and I am a Baha'i, and I have been living on this island called Saba for 22 years. When I first became a Baha'i, I think the attraction was the principles. I have always been attracted to those. I teach those. I teach them to my children in my children's class, and it's just a part of my life. Well, the three principal teachings are the oneness of God, because we all believe in the same God, and the oneness of religion, because all religions teach the same spiritual teachings, and the oneness of mankind, because we are all one. I became a Baha'i in 1963, and that was the year of the first Universal House of Justice. I became a single parent, yes, in 1963.
Okay, those years before you actually went off to pioneer, what was it like to be a single parent and a Baha'i raising 4 children? Did you get a lot of support from your community?
I got so much support from my friends that there wasn't as much anguish as there usually is in a divorce. I kept going to the LSA with my problems, and I don't know how many times I went to the LSA and told them that I was getting a divorce and I was starting my year of patience, and then we weren't able to serve the papers and we'd have to put it off and start all over again. It was some time, it really was, but they were so wonderful to me, so wonderful.
And they were your friends?
All my friends.
Can you tell me a little bit about your thoughts about becoming a pioneer?
I don't think I even thought about being a pioneer until I was in Haifa. And I met all these wonderful people. And that's where I met Pat Picassi. And I told her, at that time I had just come back from Vietnam and was working in Washington, D.C. And I told her that I had at least 2 more years to work. But I would like to go pioneering too. And she said, I have just the place for you. She had never been on Saba, but she knew that it was a small island, 5 square miles in size, and that there was no Baha'i here. So she said, that's just the place for you. And you know, I hesitated. I said, well, I should work at least 2 more years, because then I would have enough retirement money to live on in United States. But I got to thinking about it. All she said to me was, well, we need you now.
And so you...
So I went to Amos Gibson, who was on the Universal House of Justice, and told him the problem. And you know what he said?
What?
He said, well, you go to that little island and pioneer for the Baha'i faith. Then when you have to go back to the United States to live, that will be your sacrifice for the faith.
Beautiful.
Well, you know, I walked away feeling about this big. Here was this wonderful man who had given up his whole life to be on the Universal House of Justice in Haifa. And I was waffling about a little $100 a month, you know? So I went right back to Washington, D.C. That was in March. I retired in the end of June, which is the end of the fiscal year in the government, and was down here on Saba on July 21st. I have been on Saba 22 years, and I have loved every bit of it. You know, I get these lovely letters from friends. You poor thing, you know, there you are on that big old rock in the ocean. And I always felt guilty because I was feeling so no pain, you know, and happy as if I had good sense. I would like to talk about my radio program because I really do think it probably was successful. I went to the radio station at first, and I was here only about a year or so when I did this, and asked if I could give a Baha'i radio program, and I gave them a donation, and they let me do this. And I did that for quite a while, and then I dreamed up the local news program. So then they let me on twice a week. Mm-hmm. And I did that for several years. Then they needed somebody to do the children's program. And I loved doing that. I had a half-an-hour children's program. And I read, and I got in a lot of good Baha'i music and a lot of good Baha'i stories, too. So then I was on every night, Monday through Friday. And I did that for about 15 years.
15 years you
So
were on.
altogether, I was on the air 20 years. I imagine I was about as well known as anybody on the island. I think that everybody on the island knows the word Baha'i. They know that Pauline Paul is a Baha'i. They also are familiar with the word Baha'u'llah, because you see, I had the Baha'i program straight through for 15 minutes every night at the last, you see, for the last 15 years. Every night there was 15 minutes of Baha'i. Yes. I would like to say this also, that the island is 77% Catholic. And of course I attended the Catholic Church quite often, went to all the Catholic weddings and everything the Catholics were doing. And the Anglican Church is quite good here. So they're pretty well indoctrinated with other religions. And of course, you know that we embrace all religions. But I also must say that the only real thing that I think I've accomplished is through the children's classes. Because these young people came up, I would have them from the time they were 6 or 7 years old, you know. And by the time they got to be 15, they wanted to be Baha'is.
The thing that's wonderful about Pauline is that not that she just does these things, she teaches them, and it's her way of sharing whatever she has with the whole community. And it's a wonderful way to meet new people, which is what she's used it as. And she teaches children to play the piano. Like she has, I think, 12 piano students even now, and has had for years. And she's bringing up culture to this country, and they appreciate it, and they give her, of course, all kinds of awards from the women's and the government, and the thank you for your contribution, and on, and it's wonderful. Now, she just doesn't do it, she shares it.
But doesn't she make a lot of money with all these piano
No,
students?
everything's done free. She wouldn't charge anything to anybody. No, all a contribution. That's my Pauline.
You're Pauline, my.
Yeah, and you know, when they said you're going to come to Saba and help Pauline?
Yeah.
Pauline needs help like a hole in the head. I said, I'll be there to do whatever she asked me to do, otherwise, forget it.
Last November 30th, I was 85. And I'm looking toward next November to be 86.
86.
If I keep feeling as well as I feel, I'm going to make it to 100.
I'm sure you are going to make it to 100.
I feel that when you move to a new community, that the thing that you should do is to become of service to the people. And it was very important to me to be of service to Saba. Oh, I don't charge anything for anything I do. This is all service to the community. The little class that I have in teaching weaving and making hats and baskets is just another contribution to the community.
And don't you have social get-togethers that you have every week? You want to tell us about those?
Oh, yes. On Sundays I have tea every afternoon on Sunday. It was the easiest time for me to have people because I was gone till 8 o'clock every night practically. So Sunday afternoon was the easiest time. And I've found that it works in very well with everything I do, to just invite everybody to come to tea on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And I try to really have a nice tea. I think I do. When I first came here, I was so full of energy that I would run up the hills. It was amazing how I loved this place and how I ran over everything. I made it up to the top of the mountain about 8 times during the first few years I was here. But as I've grown older, I've sort of settled down to a lot less walking. You know, I tell everybody I walk, but that isn't so, because every time I start walking, I get picked up anyway, and everybody on the island knows me, and so I guess they think they have to pick up that old gal and take her wherever she's going.
Oh, tell me.
I believe that things are changing a great deal. I think women are assuming their role in the world. And I tell you that I give all kinds of support to women who are alone and raising children, because I raised all 4 of my children from the time the last one was in the 1st grade, all by myself. Mm-hmm. And it's a very important role. You have to work at it, but it can be done. My greatest challenge as a Baha'i, I haven't had any challenge as a Baha'i. What do you mean? It's all great. I don't know of any challenge.
Well,
Do you know of anything that's challenging me?
this question.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your good friend? Was she a Baha'i?
She became a Baha'i, yes.
Okay, you want to...
She is, Kuchi became a Baha'i after we had been friends for quite a long time. I don't think she ever quit being a good Catholic, but that's all right too, you know. She lived halfway down the hill, and I would walk down, of course, every day to go on the air. Then I would come walking back up, and that was a real climb, as you girls know, because you both went down there. And she lived halfway up. And I would stop and have tea at her house before I came on up to St. John. And she did become a Baha'i, and I was allowed to read a Baha'i prayer at her funeral. Yes. But, you know, when I had a ride home, I would say at the end of my at the end of my news program, I'd say, "Good night, Kuchi." Then she'd know that I wasn't going to stop. But after she died, I could not quit saying it. So every night I ended all of my news programs with "Good night, Kuchi." And people would call out to me on the street and say, "Good night, Kuchi." The Baha'i faith has been a rock. It has been something that I have depended on, that has helped me in few problems that I've had. I must have had a few challenges. The advice I would like to give is to new pioneers. When you go in to a new community, start making friends. The only successes I've had have been through inviting people to my home and making friends. And it's very, very important that you learn the culture that you are involved in, and that you become a part of the community. And that is first, before you teach. I am planning to stay on Saba. Well, I'm going to be here till I'm 100, so I have quite a while yet to go, but yes, I'm going to be buried right in the yard here. Yes. Because they do that here. You're allowed to be buried in your yard. I think you still are. I hope they haven't changed the rules lately. But this is where I want to be. I am very much in love with this island, with the people, and with my way of life.
Thank you very much.